name is Sam Neiman, a member of the League of Women Voters of Fremont, Newark, and Union City. This year, the League has produced a series of videos on the 12 ballot measures on this November 3rd ballot, plus this segment on evaluating those ballot measures. Before I go on to the meat of this presentation, I would like to say a word about the League of Women Voters. We are a nonpartisan organization. That means we do not support nor oppose candidates or political parties. What our main mission is to encourage people to be actively involved and participate in government at all levels. And we do that by increasing understanding of major public policy issues for both our members and the public at large. And lastly, if we have an issue we have studied and come to consensus upon, we will work to influence public policy on that issue through education and advocacy. And before I go on, I would like to take a moment to thank all of the many volunteers who have put together these videos and others around the state. It is a big task in the November election, and I just want to say thank you one and all for all the work you have done to make this election one where people can find nonpartisan information. So let's go on to the meat of the presentation. Okay, so when we look at evaluating ballot measures, what you want to do is look at it. Do you agree? Examine what the measure seeks to accomplish. Do you agree with the goals? Is the measure seeking changes that are consistent with your ideas about government? Do you think the proposed changes will make things better? Is the measure well written? That's really a good one. A confusing written measure can lead to legal challenges, amendments, and overturns. Additionally, when it's written in a confusing manner, sometimes you don't know what your yes and no vote means. We try to let you know in each of our presentations what that yes or no vote means. Is it good government, or will it cause more problems than it resolves? Does the measure create its own revenue source? Does it earmark, restrict, or obligate government revenues? If so, weigh that benefit of securing funding for that measure's program against the cost of reducing overall flexibility in the budget. This year is certainly a year that we can see when budgets might need a little flexibility. Does the measure mandate a government program or service without addressing how it's funded? Does the measure deal with one issue that can easily be decided on a yes or no vote? Or is it a very complex issue that should be thoroughly examined in the legislative arena? Does it amend the Constitution? If it amends the Constitution, consider whether it really belongs there. All constitutional amendments require a 2/3 majority voter approval. What we put into the Constitution has to come back out to the ballot to be changed. Be wary of ads, both TV and print, as they sometimes use distortion techniques, and commercials rely on image and tell nothing about the substance of the measure. And lastly, look at who the real sponsors and opponents of the measure is. Check where the money's coming from. And you can do that with Voters Edge or the FPPC and Secretary of State campaign finance websites. So let's take a look at those websites. All right. I would like to first start with the LWVC, League of Women Voters, California. And when you look at this site, I'm losing my, okay. All right, sometimes it takes a minute to come up. Okay, what you will notice is you could look at ballot recommendations, but for this presentation, I want to concentrate on the nonpartisan information available. Scroll down to the pros and cons on the left. And here you are. It brings you to the pros and cons, and you can bring up all the pros and cons online by clicking on View Pros and Cons Online. And there you are. Now, if you want to see this, you will see there is a wealth of information on each of these. However, in the deference to time, I need to go back to the presentation and start working on the next website. I'm going to take you to my local league, the League of Women Voters of Fremont, Newark, and Union City. And here we have an election resource centers. All local leagues will have something similar. We have done our local candidate forums online. This allows you to view candidates discussing issues of importance to voters directly. One link that I believe you should look at, and we're going to take because it's in my list of links, is the Easy Voter Guide. This guide is a short, concise, if you will, executive overview of election information, not just the pros and cons. Here you can get the Easy Voter Guide to download the guide in English, Spanish, Chinese, Vietnamese, and Korean. And this year, I'm going to scroll down here, the League provides information on our justice system here in California. It's a pretty hot topic this time. So you can see I've scrolled through candidates, our representatives, senators, and then this year, Our Voice Matters, a spotlight on our justice. And this gives you information that you may or may not be familiar with. This is a great resource for very busy people. Now let's take a look at Voter's Edge. This is a great site to get your personal ballot information, and I'll show you how that's done. Okay, I ended up at the Easy Voter Guide again. Let me back out of this and go to Voter's Edge. Okay, here in Voter's Edge, I can type in my zip code and find my ballot. And this gives you, as I said, more in-depth information than the Easy Voter Guide. You can look at the candidates, you can look at the measures, you can look at information about your local polling site. And the thing I like about this particular one is not only does it give you much of the same information, but it allows you to track what your choices are. And this does not submit your ballot. It gives you a place to keep track, and this is good for when you have limited time over a number of days and you want to keep track of whom you're voting for and what measures you're voting for and against. Okay, now I'm not going to go into CA Votes or Ballotpedia.org. They handle much of the same organization, as does calmatters.org. However, I encourage you to take a look at them, see which one meets your needs as a way to get the information you need to vote. Let's look at the Legislative Analyst Office and Secretary of State sites. These are for those of you who want to take a deeper dive into the measures, candidates, and fiscal impacts of measures and spending by candidates and committees for measures. Okay, we're going to look into the November ballot propositions. And this is a very, how do I say, very detailed information on what the Legislative Analyst Office has done with this measure. When you look at the videos on the pros and cons, much of our data comes here and from the Secretary of State site, as well as the FPPC, the Fair Political Practices Committee site, and we'll be looking at both of those. Okay, so we've looked at the Legislative Analyst site. Now let's look at the Secretary of State site. This gives you information on the elections and also on campaigning and lobbying. And what we go to find this activity is we go to the Cal Access resources. It used to be on the front page. They just did a major website review, and now you have to go to more resources. And when you go to more resources, you can look at total ballot measures, total contributions. and that gives you information about who is giving monies to, say, let's check Proposition 22. That's the one I took a look at recently. And you can see that the total amount contributed has been quite a number. This is 182 million is a fairly large number. And who were the contributors on this? Now, you're seeing things and who is this person? Yes, on 22, Save App-based jobs and services. Who are the small businesses? Well, what we do is we can go to the FPPC website, look at their transparency portal, and there we can take a look as you walk down the left-hand side. Let's take a look at the top contributors list. Here you can get an overview of the November 2020 election. And let's look at the top 10 contributors list. They give you a status if these people are moving up and down the list or if they're new. Additionally, and I must emphasize, this is updated a lot. You may want to take a look just before you vote on who the contributors are. And what this gives you, you can look at the aggregate, but we saw that on the Secretary of State site. I'm going to look at who formed committees to support or oppose a ballot measure. Now, there's a lot of scrolling in this one, but let's just look at 14 since that's the first there. You can see the top contributor in this site was Robert N. Klein, an affiliated entity. We are talking about each of these in our short videos on each of the pro and con videos, so you can get that information there, or you can choose to delve down yourself. Now, what I'd like to do is go back to the presentation and say a word of thank you for voting. And I hope you find these websites enlightening and enjoy the process of voting and participating in our government. And mostly, I thank you for voting.